2 weeks ago today, AGS dropped the hotly awaited Echidna nerfs. Since then, I've been in the pug grinder, and I have to say, life is pretty good. Let's talk about it. In late June, Echidna was released to Western Lost Ark, a raid widely thought to be significantly easier than the previous raid, Thamine. Still, it ended up being a very unfriendly progging experience for most of the community. The "it's free" meme was birthed in the community, and despair occurred for many attempting this raid and even re-clearing. My perspective after my pug got our first clear was that it was a pretty easy raid, but our prog was still very problematic. Frustration from members in my static led to long-standing members leaving the static and the game altogether. The DPS check at the end of the raid prevented losing anyone before basement, but technically the snake's mech in general. I'm an average Lost Ark player, not bad, but not great either. My static falls in that same category as well. These repetitive mistakes and members pointing fingers at the wrong people ended up tearing the static up. I would like to reiterate though that I do not and did not think this raid was even remotely difficult, especially on normal difficulty. The first half of the raid is what I consider the harder part, as dealing with many of the factors that give stacks or just outright kill you feel the most stacked upon each other at this point in the raid. I would bet that a vast majority of your own restarts happen pre-basement, and after a week or two of experience, the basement was almost a sheer shot to success because of the abundant use of fire nades on the 100-meter snake mech in pug lobbies. Know that when I am talking about this raid, I am specifically talking about normal. The top half's restarts were typically from greeting. You can probably say that about any raid in Lost Ark, but it seems the most prevalent here due to the absurdities of the majority of the death. This is further amplified because how many of you have even seen the end rage or gone close to it on the top side? Things like 4 and 8 mirror, 25 or 75 meter, and panic from the beam mech seem like the most commonplace deaths and restarts. This was bad with the static, but amplified when I got more characters to Echidna and was forced to pug some of my runs. Gate 1's design is horrendous. They wanted to try something new and make it feel more cinematic with a battlefield aesthetic, but the first third is lying on the floor POV, into a line mechanic that just feels like scraping your nails on a chalkboard, into kind of a chill experience for the middle section, but then goes back into I've fallen over and can't get up POV once again for the rest of the fight. This raid was a huge jail, even on CM reclear lobbies with well-built characters. Getting past Gate 1 with pugs was an achievement in itself because there was always one pug whom would die pre the split. Then the other pugs would call a raid quit. If you somehow got past Gate 1, the one well-built character who applied for some reason mysteriously had to leave after Gate 1. There would also be this shortage of support near the end of the week, and after waiting for an hour, you would have a poorly built alt account one apply who was cleared many times on their main account, but after doing Gate 1, it was clearly hadn't. This weirdly happened a lot, and I fell for it every time due to the waiting simulator fatigue. Then all the pain that was Gate 2 and a static was amplified in pugs until you reformed like 6 times to get the right people. All this pain made Echidna's a super sore part of the week to run, and the game became unnecessarily stressful to fit my raids in for the week. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago when the nerfs were laid, and this raid is now a glorious homework environment. Gate 1 is still a horrendous experience, but at least people aren't dying constantly to that initial fire blast from the dragon. Gate 2 still has deaths in its top half due to people greeting effectively, but the HP nerfs and relaxation of things like the beam mech and charm fall off have made the top a breeze on eye level. I've actually had some of the worst pug players these past 2 weeks in my lobbies, from folks not being able to press Q on Clash at the right time somehow, people leaving before the first snake even hit 61, and people constantly padding the boss's meter due to looking during Medusa or grabbed in the yellow feet mechanic. Even with how bad these players were, all of these mistakes were typically on successful runs, and a majority of these were 1-tap or max 3 pulls for success. In regards to hard mode, we had been pulling Gate 2 hard for 2 weeks prior to the nerfs and successfully got the clear as a group day 1 of the nerf patch. We hadn't got to 0 mech prior, but it looks gutted and free now. I don't know what it is about our runs, but the jump rope mech happens very often and feels like a huge waste of time, but that's really my only gripe as of now. These past 2 weeks have felt so relaxed. I've actually only been jailed in Thamons and Voldus since the nerfs, and those aren't really that bad in the grand scheme. This does make me reflect on the difficulty of these raids though. This relaxed re-clear experience I've witnessed these past 2 weeks has been very fun and made me optimistic about my time on Lost Ark. I do wonder if something like a 10 clear title unlocking a more chilled out raid that didn't have as much of its wipes, but replaced with majority health loss would be better for the raid fatigue the community gets cyclically every year. I know the purists, and even I to an extent, enjoy the rush of first time clears and the idea of parsing and getting better week after week on hard difficulties, but at least for normal difficulty, I feel like after a certain milestone of clears, achieving a level of proficiency for repeated clears unlocks a less demanding mode that allows for an easy homework environment for your less geared alts. This will likely not come, as there needs to be some motivation to push eye level on this free-to-play game, but I've seen the greener grass on the other side, and I'm hoping to maintain this level of enjoyment going forward. Now, this has been my perspective. I have 6 1620s, half of which are in static runs, and the other half with some pug friends. My experience is likely different than yours, as I, although lacking the skill for Giga DPS parses, come with a well-kitted roster for somewhat easy lobbying. What have your experiences been with the Echidna pre-nerf and now post? I'm genuinely curious how others' experiences with this raid have potentially changed, as I love it now. Today, I, along with 8 others in my static, will be progging Behemoth with pugs in a lobby simulator for the first time since Brel, so hopefully this raid is as chill as it seems because I do not know how I am supposed to wrangle randoms. Check out my other Lost Ark videos in my playlist here, or check out my best classes for solo raids video I put out last week. And until next time, I'm Easy Break. Take it easy.